I have a question for you and for everyone listening, but I want you to be really honest. Don't give me the social media answer, the everything's fine answer. Are you happy?
Whoa. Okay. So we are. We were starting with the big one today.
We are.
That is the ultimate loaded question, isn't it?
It is. It's the question, right? It's the one we spend our entire lives trying to figure out, or at least trying to manufacture a yes to.
Mm-hmm.
We buy the right car, we chase the promotion, we go on the perfect vacations, all so we can look at that question and say, yes, absolutely, I'm happy.
We're building a case for our own happiness.
Exactly. We're building a legal case. But here's the thing, and this is what we are digging into today. When you answer that question, are you happy?
The you that is answering might not be the same you that is actually living your life.
Okay, that sounds like a riddle. Or, the start of a sci-fi movie. The you that isn't you.
It does, doesn't it? But it's not sci-fi. It's actually hardcore cognitive psychology and behavioral economics. We are looking at a massive stack of research today. A really massive stack.
We're talking studies involving thousands of women in the U.S., in France, in Denmark, plus these huge data sets from the Gallup World Poll.
Yeah.
And all of it completely dismantles how we traditionally understand well-being.
We are talking about the concept of the two selves.
The battle. The absolute cage match between what the research calls the remembering self and the experiencing self. And honestly, reading through this source material, I had a bit of an existential crisis.
Just a small one.
A medium-sized one. I mean, a solid Tuesday afternoon existential crisis. Because the research suggests that most of us are making major life decisions. Where to live, who to marry, what job to take, based on the desires of oneself.
For remembering self.
Well, completely ignoring the misery it might be causing the other self.
And the mission for this deep dive really is to stop doing that. We aren't just looking for what makes people feel satisfied in a general kind of abstract sense. We're looking for the texture of daily life.
Yes.
The actual quality of the moments you live through on a random Tuesday morning when no one's watching.
Exactly. And by the end of this hour, we want you to understand why a high income might make you think you're happy without actually making you feel happy. And more importantly, how you can use your time, not just your money, your time to actually improve your lived experience.
It's a big promise.
It is. But to get there, we have to start with where the science went wrong. Or maybe not wrong, but where it got stuck for about 15 years.
It didn't go wrong per se, but it definitely fell into a trap.
The trap of the global question.
Right. So imagine you are a researcher in, say, the 1990s. You want to know if a population is doing well. How do you measure that?
You ask them.
You ask them. You create a survey, and you ask millions of people some variation of this one question. All things considered, how satisfied are you with your life these days?
Which seems totally logical.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most direct route. Right. If I want to know if you're happy, I ask you, hey, how's life? Why is that a trap?
It seems logical, but think about what your brain does when I ask you that. You stop what you're doing, you pause, you step back, you look at the big picture. You basically review your life as if it were a resume or a story you're telling a stranger.
Okay, so I'm evaluating. I'm thinking, well, I have a decent job, I have a house, my health is, it's okay. I'm telling up the points.
Exactly. You are engaging the remembering self. You are keeping score. But that evaluation, that score you give yourself, isn't the same thing as what you actually felt at 8:15 a.m. this morning when you were stuck in traffic and spilled coffee all over your shirt.
No. At 8:15 a.m., I was enraged. I was not satisfied. My life satisfaction was a 0.
Precisely. And this is where the lead researcher on this topic, who is a giant in the field of cognitive psychology, a Nobel laureate, started to get suspicious. He came to this topic from a background of studying mistaken memories.
Right.
He realized that human beings are, frankly, terrible witnesses to their own lives.
This is where we have to talk about the colonoscopies.
A slight chuckle. We do. We have to talk about the colonoscopy study.
I feel like every time we do a deep dive on psychology, it eventually comes down to some form of mild, university-approved torture.
It's for science. So this is a classic study, and it is really the foundation of this whole two selves theory. This was back in the 1990s before sedation was totally standard for colonoscopies. So patients were awake, and it was painful.
It sounds just horrific.
It wasn't fun. So the researchers asked patients to rate their pain level every 60 seconds on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being, I'm fine, 10 being absolute agony.
Okay, so they have real-time data of the suffering, minute by minute.
Yeah.
This is the experiencing self talking.
Exactly. This is the raw data of the experience. And let's look at two specific patients from the study. We'll call them patient A and patient B.
Okay.
Patient A has the procedure. It lasts for 8 minutes. It's relatively short. But the pain peaks at an 8 out of 10, and right at the very end, the pain is still at a 7 when the probe comes out.
Got it. 8 minutes of intense pain, ending on a real high note of agony. Not a gentle landing.
Not at all. Now, patient B. His procedure lasts 24 minutes.
24. So 3 times as long.
3 times as long. That sounds worse already, right?
Yeah, instantly worse.
Hold on. He also hits that same peak pain of 8, so the worst moment is just as bad for both of them. But for the last few minutes of his procedure, the doctor leaves the probe in without moving it much. It's uncomfortable, sure, but the pain drops way down. It's a 1 or a 2 before it ends.
Okay, so let me get the math right here. Patient A suffers for 8 minutes, ends at a 7. Patient B suffers for 24 minutes, has the same peak pain, plus an extra 16 minutes of just general discomfort. But he ends at a 1.
That's the perfect summary. So if I asked you, or if I asked a purely logical observer, a computer who suffered more, who had the objectively worse experience.
Case your B, obviously. It's simple integration, right? You just calculate the areas under the curve of pain. Patient B's area is huge. He suffered for 3 times longer.
That is the logical answer. That is
Yeah.
the correct answer if you are measuring total duration of pain. But when the procedure was over, the researchers went back to the patients and asked them to give a single rating for how bad the total experience was.
And I only have patient B said it was better.
Patient B rated the experience as significantly less painful than patient A did.
That makes absolutely no sense. None. He was in pain for longer.
It makes no sense to the experiencing self. The experiencing self of patient B was screaming for 24 minutes. But the remembering self, the one answering the question afterward, the one telling the story, it doesn't care about duration.
It just ignores time. How can it ignore time? Time is all there is.
It ignores duration almost completely. It operates on what the researchers called the peak end rule.
Okay, break that down. Peak end rule.
The brain is a storyteller, not a recording device. This is the key insight. It doesn't store a perfect, unedited video file of your life. It stores a highlight reel. And when it edits that reel, it's a ruthless editor. It only keeps 2 things: the most intense moment of the experience, the peak, and the very last moment of the experience, the end.
And it just averages those 2.
It averages those 2 together and throws out the rest, the duration. The other 22 minutes of pain for patient B, gone. Doesn't factor into the memory.
So for patient A, the peak was an 8, the end was a 7. His brain averages that to a 7.5. It's a really painful memory.
A very painful memory. He remembers it as awful.
And for patient B.
The peak was an 8, but the end was a 1, so his brain averages it to a 4.5.
Wow. So just because it ended gently, his brain rewrote the history of the previous 20 minutes of agony.
Essentially, yes, the memory was sanitized by the good ending. And this finding, it blew the researchers' minds.
I can see why.
It meant that global satisfaction, asking people how they feel about an experience, is a deeply flawed metric if you want to know how much they actually suffered during the experience.
This is wild, because if you apply this to vacations, I mean, I've had this happen. I go on a trip, it's 2 weeks. The first 13 days are amazing. Relaxing, sunny, great food, no stress.
Bliss.
Total bliss. Then, on the way to the airport on the last day, my luggage gets stolen and I get into a massive fight with my partner.
A terrible hunt.
And if someone asked me a week later, how was your vacation?
You'd probably say,
I'd probably say, it was a disaster.
right. Your remembering self has hijacked the narrative because of the bad end. Even though your experiencing self had 13 days of pure bliss, you are discounting, 300 hours of happiness because of 2 hours of stress?
I'm letting the storyteller ruin the actual story.
We all do it. It's a cognitive bias called duration neglect.
So the researcher realizes that these big global surveys asking, how satisfied are you with your life, are just measuring these flawed, edited stories. They aren't measuring reality.
Correct. They are measuring the story of your life, not the life of your life. So he decided to pivot. He and his team wanted to find a way to measure the experiencing self. And the definition they came up with in the source material uses a hypothetical woman named Helen.
Helen was happy in the month of March.
It's a simple sentence, but what does it actually mean? What are the conditions for that to be true?
Well, normally we'd think it means Helen got a promotion or got engaged in March. Something big happened.
That's the remembering self again. That's a story highlight. The researchers defined it very differently. To say Helen was happy in March It means she spent most of her time engaged in activities she would rather continue than stop.
Okay, that's interesting.
It also means she spent very little time in situations she wished to escape. And this part is key. She didn't spend too much time in a neutral state, just sort of existing.
I really resonate with that continue rather than stop idea. It reminds me of when I'm doing something I love, like reading a great book, or I'm deep into a project, and the phone rings, and I just feel this jolt of anger. I want to throw the phone out the window.
That's the signal. The source material references Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi here.
The flow guy. The unpronounceable
The
name.
flow guy, exactly. That state of total absorption, whether you're painting or coding or even just really, really into a conversation with a friend, you don't want to be interrupted.
Yeah.
The lead researcher shares a personal memory in the notes about his childhood. He says he always cried when his mother came to tear him away from his toys to go to the park.
I was that kid.
And then he cried again when she took him away from the swings to go home.
I am definitely that kid. I still am that kid, just with adult toys.
We all are. But that crying, that resistance to the transition was the proof that he was having a good time. His experiencing self was happy. He didn't want the experience to end.
Okay, so we have a better definition of happiness. It's not a judgment. It's a flow of experience. It's about the quality of your time. But here is the problem, and I feel like this is where the science gets really, really difficult. How do you measure that?
It's a huge challenge.
You can't just ask people, how did you feel yesterday? Because their remembering self will jump in and lie to you with its edited highlight reel.
Exactly. You're fighting the brain's natural tendency to edit the tape. And you can't have a person live their normal life while constantly reporting their feelings every few seconds.
How happy are you now? How about now? Are you enjoying this sentence? How about this one?
It would drive you insane. It would actually ruin the happiness you're trying to measure. It's a classic observer effect. You change the phenomenon by observing it.
So what do they do? Because they needed to somehow bypass the memory, but not annoy the subjects to death.
Well, the gold standard method, which was originally invented by Csikszentmihalyi, is called experience sampling.
Is this the beeper thing? I've heard about this.
And this is the beeper thing. They program a participant's cell phone or a special device to beep or vibrate at random intervals during the day. Could be 10 a.m., could be 11:10 a.m., could be 3:52 p.m.
And when it beeps.
When it beeps, you have to stop everything and answer a brief menu of questions. What are you doing? Who are you with? And you rate the intensity of various feelings: happiness, tension, anger, worry, engagement, and so on.
Honestly, if my phone beeped while I was in a moment of flow and asked me, are you angry?
I would become angry because of the beep.
Agrees. It is burdensome. It's disruptive by its very nature. And it's incredibly expensive to run these studies because you need people to commit to this for weeks to get a good baseline. So the team behind this research, which was a dream team of psychologists and an economist, needed a hack.
A more practical solution.
They needed a way to get that same level of granular moment-to-moment detail without the beeper.
Enter the day reconstruction method.
The DRM. I found this fascinating because it relies on the idea that we can basically relive our feelings if we set the scene properly. It's like method acting for your own life.
That's a great way to put it. They invited women to a session and asked them to relive the previous day, but they didn't just say, so tell us about yesterday. That would trigger the remembering self.
Right. You just get the summary. It was a busy day.
Instead, they forced them to break the day up into episodes, like scenes in a film.
So scene 1, woke up, alarm went off. Scene 2, made coffee. Scene 3, the commute.
Exactly. For each scene, what was the start time? What was the end time? What specifically were you doing and who were you with? And the evidence shows that when people retrieve a situation in this specific episodic way, they actually retrieve the accompanying feelings.
It's like the memory of the feeling is attached to the memory of the details.
It is. Your body almost remembers it. So instead of the remembering self glancing at the whole day and saying, it was fine, the DRM forces you to look at the footage frame by frame.
And you remember, oh, right.
For 20 minutes during the commute, my stomach was tight and I was incredibly frustrated. And then, for 15 minutes during coffee, I felt warm and relaxed and focused. It bypasses the storyteller by focusing on the footage.
And they verified this, right? They didn't just assume it worked. They compared the DRM results to the expensive beeper results.
They did. They ran both methods on different groups, and the results were shockingly similar. The patterns of emotion throughout the day were nearly identical. The DRM worked.
That's a huge breakthrough.
It was. It gave them an accurate, scalable map of how people actually felt minute by minute. And this allowed them to create a metric that is central to everything we're going to discuss today: the U index.
The U index. This sounds like something from an economics textbook, like the Consumer Price Index, but it's measuring something much more visceral.
It stands for unpleasant state. And what I love about this is that it tries to be objective about something very subjective. It puts a number on suffering.
Let's break down the math,
Mhm.
because unpleasant can mean a lot of things. How do you define it?
In the study, they had people rate a bunch of positive feelings. Things like happy, warm, enjoying myself. And a bunch of negative feelings. Frustrated, angry, depressed, worried on a scale, say, 0 to 6.
Correct.
An episode of your day is classified as U, or unpleasant, if the highest rated negative feeling is stronger than all of the positive feelings combined.
Oh, wait. Let's be precise here.
Yeah.
The source says if the highest rated negative feeling is stronger than any of the positive feelings,
Yeah.
so it only takes one strong negative to tip the scale.
You're right. That's a key correction. It's not about the sum. It's about the dominant emotion. So if you rate frustrated as a 4 and your highest positive feeling, say, happy, is only a 3,
Then you're in a U state.
you are officially in an unpleasant state for that block of time.
Okay, let's test this. Let's say I'm at the DMV. My boredom is a 6, my anger is a 4, but I'm scrolling on my phone and I see a funny meme, so my happiness is a 2.
Your highest negative is boredom at 6. Your highest positive is happy at 2. The negative feeling dominates. That is a U episode. You're in an unpleasant state.
Okay, what if I'm at work and I'm stressed? Stress is a 5, but I'm also really engaged and feeling productive, so my feeling of engagement is a 7.
Then the positive feeling, engagement at 7, outweighs the negative, stress at 5. That is not a U episode. Even though you have significant stress, the net experience is classified as positive,
Got it. So it's a net misery score for a block of time.
essentially. And from there, they could calculate the percentage of waking time that people spend in this net negative state. That percentage is the U index.
And the stats here were really interesting to compare across cultures. They looked at a sample of women in the U.S., France, and Denmark. Give us the numbers.
Okay, so for the American women in the study, they spent about 19% of their time in an unpleasant state.
Roughly 1/5 of their waking life. That
Mhm.
seems, I know that seems high or low. It's hard to judge.
Well, compare it to the others. The French women in the sample were at
A
16%,
little better.
and the Danish women, only 14%.
So the Danes are winning. Again, why are the Danes always winning these happiness studies? It's like a rule.
Agrees. Well, that's a whole other deep dive on social safety nets and work-life balance. But the implication here is huge. Think about it from a policy perspective. If you're a government and you can introduce a policy that drops your population's U index from 20% to 18%.
You aren't just shifting a survey number.
No,
Yeah.
you are reducing human suffering by millions of hours. You are giving people back hours of their life from a state of misery.
It makes suffering tangible. It's not just, I'm sad. It's, I was sad for 4 hours and 15 minutes. It turns emotion into a resource, like time or money.
Exactly. But here's the catch. The distribution of this pain is not even remotely even. This is what the researchers called the inequality of suffering.
Yeah, this part really surprised me. I assumed everyone has a mix of good and bad days. You know, you spill the coffee, you hit the traffic. Everyone suffers a bit. It's part of the human condition.
That's what we assume. It's a comforting thought that we're all in it together. But the data showed that about half the participants in these studies reported going a whole day with 0 unpleasant episodes.
0. Not even a moment of, ugh, this line is so long.
Not enough to tip the scale into a net negative state. They might have had a flash of annoyance, sure, but generally their positive feelings always outweigh the negative. So you have half the people just cruising, having a pretty good day.
Which means the other half.
The other half is doing all the suffering, and a small minority within that group is doing most of the suffering.
It's the Pareto principle of misery, the 80-20 rule. 80% of the suffering is done by 20% of the people.
It's pretty close to that. And the sources point out this is often due to things we'd expect: chronic mental or physical illness, an inherently unhappy temperament, or a recent personal tragedy like a bereavement or divorce.
It highlights that suffering tends to cluster. If you are struggling, you are likely struggling for a large percentage of your day. It's relentless. It's not just a bad moment.
It's a bad state of being.
Okay, so we know who is suffering, or at least how much, but what are they doing when they suffer? This is where the day reconstruction method really shines. It gives us a hierarchy of human activities, from miserable to blissful.
And this is where we can all start to audit our own lives. I want everyone listening to mentally check their own schedule against this list because it's illuminating.
They broke down the U index by specific activities for American women in the Midwest. Let's start at the bottom. The high suffering category. Top of the list, Any guesses?
I think we all knew.
The morning commute. A U-index of 29%. Nearly a third of the time spent commuting was rated as unpleasant.
No surprise there. The commute is the enemy of the human soul. It's a perfect storm of stress, boredom, and a complete lack of control. You are just a cog in a machine of misery.
What's next on the misery list?
Work itself,
Yeah.
a U-index of 27%.
Ouch. Over a quarter of the time we spend earning a living, we're in a net negative emotional state. That's a rough trade.
It is. And this is the one that always causes arguments at dinner parties, childcare, coming in with a U-index of 24%.
We need to stop here. We need to put a giant pin in this. You are telling me that spending time with your own children is statistically almost as miserable as being stuck in traffic.
According to the raw U.S. data for this group, yes. It's less enjoyable than housework, which came in at 18%.
Less enjoyable than scrubbing the toilet. That cannot be right.
I love my kids.
If you ask me the global question, do your kids make you happy? I say, yes, they are the light of my life. They are my entire reason for being.
That is your remembering self speaking. That is the story you tell, and it's a true story about your values and your love. My kids are my joy. But you're experiencing self. The one who is dealing with the tantrum in the cereal aisle.
Oh, I know that stuff.
The one trying to get a toddler to put on shoes for 20 solid minutes. That self is frustrated, tired, and anxious.
So the data separates the deep, profound love from the mundane, often irritating task.
Exactly. The task of childcare, the management, the discipline, the constant negotiation, the cleaning up is high stress. But wait, before all the parents listening turn off this deep dive in a rage, there is a huge twist.
Please give me a twist, because I'm starting to feel like a terrible person.
There is a massive cultural difference. This is what's so important about this research. When they ran the same study in France, the story changed completely.
Did French women hate childcare less?
Significantly less. For French women, childcare barely registered as a negative. In fact, it was a net positive experience much more often than for the American women.
Why? Are French kids just, magically better behaved?
Well-
Is it the baguettes? What's going on?
Agrees, it's not the kids, it's the structure of the time. The researchers suggest it comes down to how that time is spent. Think about the typical afternoon for a suburban American mom in the study.
Okay. School pickup at 3, drive to soccer practice, sit in the car answering emails, drive to piano lessons, drive home, cook dinner while yelling about homework and trying to sign a permission slip.
Right. She is a logistics manager. She is a chauffeur. The task being measured as childcare is transportation and management.
So childcare in the U.S. is often actually commuting with a screaming passenger.
Exactly. Now look at the French model described in the sources. French women have significantly more access to state-sponsored childcare and after-school programs, the garderie system, that handle a lot of the logistics. So when they are with their kids...
They're not driving them to soccer?
No, they are walking in the park, they are reading a book together, they are having a snack and talking about their day.
They were just hanging out.
They are focusing on connection, not management. The quality of the time is completely different.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't love our kids. It's that the activity of childcare in the American context has become a second, unpaid job of logistics and scheduling.
And that brings us to a crucial point about the experiencing self. The situation rules the mood.
Right. We tend to think in these big, blurry categories. I love my job or I hate my job, as if Job is one big block of feeling.
But the data says that your general job satisfaction, things like your benefits, your status, your salary, doesn't actually predict your mood at work on a Tuesday at 10 a.m.
No. General satisfaction is for the remembering self to put on its resume. The experiencing self doesn't care about your 401k match while you're in a pointless meeting.
The experiencing self cares about immediate situational factors. Is it noisy? Is there a deadline looming, creating time pressure? Are you socializing with a coworker you genuinely like?
And the big one, the one that made me laugh when I read it, is the boss in the room.
Agrees. Yes. In the first study, the immediate presence of a boss was the only factor that was statistically worse for your mood than being completely alone.
That is so telling. The boss is statistically a happiness vampire.
It just reminds us that our moment-to-moment happiness is incredibly fragile and dependent on the immediate environment. You can have the perfect life on paper, but if you sit next to someone who chews loudly at work, your experiencing self is miserable for 8 hours a day.
And it's dependent on attention. This was a concept in the source material that really stuck with me. Emotional state is largely determined by what we attend to.
Meaning, what you are focusing on right now is, for all intents and purposes, your reality. That is what determines how you feel.
They use the example of eating to illustrate this. And again, it's a U.S. versus France smackdown.
It really is a recurring theme. So they compared French and American women again. Both groups spent about the same amount of daily time eating, about an hour a day. But for the French women, eating was the focal point.
They were just eating. That was the only thing happening.
For the most part, yes. They were attending to the food, to the conversation, to the experience. They were socializing while they ate.
And the Americans.
The Americans were far more likely to combine eating with other activities. Working while eating, driving while eating, watching TV while eating.
The classic sad desk salad. We've all been there.
Right. And the result is that the pleasure Americans got from eating was significantly diluted. If you aren't paying attention to the pleasure, you don't actually get the emotional benefit of it.
It's like the tree falling in the forest. If you eat a delicious sandwich but you're answering emails and your stomach is in knots about a deadline, did you really taste the sandwich?
According to this data, no, you didn't. Your experiencing self was at work, not at lunch. Your attention was on the stress, not the flavor.
There is an exception to this attention rule, though, which the sources mention. Recurrent thoughts.
True. This is where the brain overrides the immediate environment. If you are intensely in love or if you are grieving a loss, those powerful internal states can color everything.
So I could be stuck in that miserable traffic jam we talked about, but I'm smiling like an idiot because I'm replaying a date I had last night.
Exactly. The situation is negative, but your attention is on a powerful positive memory. Or, conversely, you could be at a hilarious comedy show, but you're feeling crushed because you're grieving. The jokes don't land.
But for most of our lives, for the average day, it's the immediate environment and what we choose to attend to that dictates our happiness.
It really is.
Before we move to the big money question, which I know everyone is waiting for, we have to mention the social factor. This was maybe the most powerful finding of all.
We cannot skip this. If you take one thing away from this deep dive, let it be this. The data is crystal clear. The second best predictor of a person's daily feelings, right after baseline factors like whether you're sick or not, is whether that person had contact with friends or relatives.
The source material has a great quote on this. I have it right here. It is only a slight exaggeration to say that happiness is the experience of spending time with people you love and who love you.
It's so simple. It sounds like something you'd read on a greeting card, but we consistently, systematically ignore it.
We design our lives in ways that reduce that time. We move across the country for jobs, away from our families. We work long hours that cut into friend time. We commute alone in metal boxes for 2 hours a day.
We trade social time for money or for status, thinking it won't matter or that we'll make up for it later.
But for the experiencing self, it's everything. Isolation is misery. Connection is joy.
It is the bedrock of a good day.
Okay? Speaking of trading things for money, let's talk about the trade-off. Let's talk about the money question.
The big one, the one everyone asks.
Can money buy happiness? It's the ultimate cliche. And the researchers analyzed over 450,000 responses from the Gallup Healthways Well-Being Index to answer it. That is a massive data set.
It is a huge sample of the American population, and the answer they found is complex. It's not a simple yes or no. The answer is, it depends on which self you ask.
Let's start with the bottom of the ladder, poverty. Does money buy happiness if you are poor?
Yes. Unambiguously, yes. Or rather, money buys a reduction in misery. The data is stark here. Being poor makes you miserable. There is no romanticizing it, but what's so interesting is how it makes you miserable.
It's not just that you can't buy nice things.
No, that's a very small part of it. The real damage is that poverty acts as an amplifier for all of life's other misfortunes.
Give us an example from the data.
Okay, take a headache. A simple, common physical ailment. For people in the wealthiest 2/3 of the population, a headache is annoying. It increases the proportion of people reporting sadness and worry from a baseline of 19% up to 38%.
So it doubles the misery. That's bad enough.
It's a bad day. But for the poorest 1/10 of the population, that same headache is catastrophic. Their baseline for sadness and worry is already at 38%.
Though they start where the wealthy person ends up.
Exactly. And the headache jumps their sadness and worry from 38% all the way to 70%.
Wow. So their baseline is already twice as bad, and then the headache nearly doubles it again to 70%.
Exactly. Poverty removes the buffer. If you are well off and you get a headache, you can take a sick day, you can buy the good medicine, you can order takeout for dinner. If you are poor and you get a headache, you still have to take the bus, you still have to work that physically demanding shift, you might not have childcare. The headache is just one more stressor on an already overloaded system.
The weekend effect disappears for the poor, too, right?
Yes. For most people, weekends are a relief. Stress drops, happiness rises. For the very poor, the weekend benefit is significantly smaller. There is no escape from the stress of survival.
So lesson one, money is absolutely critical for well-being up to a point where it removes these constant grinding stressors.
But what about the other end of the spectrum? What about being rich?
This is where we hit the famous satiation level.
The magic number. In the original study, it was $75,000 in household income.
Right. And before everyone yells at their speakers, this study is from a few years ago, and that's a national average.
Yeah, $75K in 2026 implies a very different lifestyle than in 2010. And $75K in New York City is not the same as $75K in Omaha.
Exactly. So don't get hung up on the specific number. Think about the concept. The concept is that there is a threshold where you have enough money to cover your needs and some of your wants comfortably. You aren't worried about the basics. A surprise car repair bill doesn't send you into a panic.
Okay. So let's call it middle-class stability, a good term for it. What the data found is that experienced well-being, that's the daily mood, the smiling, the laughing, the lack of stress, stops increasing once you hit that stability threshold.
It stops, like a hard stop, a flat line.
It flattens out completely. Above that number, the curve is almost perfectly flat. You get zero additional improvement in your daily mood as you earn more.
So wait, if I go from making that stable salary to making 3 times that amount, I won't laugh more, I won't smile more, I won't feel less stressed on an average Wednesday.
On average, according to this massive data set, no, your experiencing self hits a ceiling. You can't be happier than happy. You can't be more stress-free than stress-free. There's a natural limit to how good a day can feel.
And here's the twist that screws with all our heads. My remembering self does get happier.
Yes, this is the critical distinction that explains so much of modern ambition. If you ask people about their life evaluation, they use a metaphor of a ladder from 0 to 10, where 10 is the best possible life for you. That score continues to rise with income well beyond the threshold.
It doesn't flatten out.
It doesn't seem to. The more you earn, the higher up the ladder you place yourself. You tell yourself, I have a successful life.
So the more I earn, the more I feel satisfied when I step back and look at the resume of my life. But I'm not actually having more fun on a Tuesday.
Correct. You feel more successful. You are more satisfied with the narrative you're building. But the texture of your day hasn't changed. In fact, for many, it might be getting worse.
Worse? How could it get worse?
Well, think about the jobs that pay $300,000 versus the ones that pay $80,000. They often come with more stress, longer hours, more responsibility, and less time for those social contact boosters we just said were the bedrock of a good day.
You are actively trading experiencing self-happiness for remembering self-satisfaction.
That is the modern condition for many high achievers. It's a trap we set for ourselves.
We're chasing the salary to satisfy the storyteller in our head, even if the person actually living the life is tired and lonely.
And it might be even worse than that. There is a savoring theory mentioned in the notes that suggests higher income might actually reduce your ability to enjoy small pleasures.
This is the chocolate study. This is mind-blowing. Walk us through it.
So psychologists wanted to see if the mere concept of wealth affected how people enjoyed simple things. They recruited a bunch of students. Half of them were primed with the idea of wealth. They saw a photo of a stack of money on a computer screen for a few seconds. Really subtle stuff.
Okay. And the other half, the control group, saw something neutral.
Then they gave all the students a piece of chocolate to eat, and they had hidden cameras watching their faces to code their expressions of enjoyment.
A little creepy, but okay for science.
The results were stark. The students who were primed with the idea of money spent less time eating the chocolate and showed significantly less pleasure on their faces while eating it.
Just thinking about money made the chocolate taste less good.
It made them savor it less. The unconscious logic seems to be, if you know you can afford the best things in life, if you can fly first class to the Alps and drink vintage wine, then the simple everyday joy of a piece of chocolate or a sunny afternoon it loses its punch.
You lose the ability to enjoy the cheap stuff.
And since 99% of life is made of cheap stuff, a good cup of coffee, sunshine, a chat with a friend, a song on the radio, if you devalue those, you hollow out your daily happiness.
If you end up with a high net worth and a flatline mood.
That is.
That's a terrifying thought.
It's a powerful caution against anchoring your happiness on the big-ticket items that the remembering self loves so much.
We also have to look at two other factors from the big Gallup poll that surprised me: education and religion. You'd think these are straightforward positives for well-being.
They're much more nuanced. Let's take education. We tend to think, as a society, that more education equals a better life.
And for the remembering self, it does. The data confirms that.
Right. More education correlates with a higher life evaluation. You feel you've achieved something, you have more status, you place yourself higher on that life ladder.
But for the experiencing self,
There is no gain in well-being, none. In fact, highly educated people tend to report higher stress levels on a daily basis.
so you're prouder of your life, but you're more stressed while actually living it.
That seems to be the trade-off. It's likely because of the types of jobs and responsibilities that come with that education. You are trading peace of mind for prestige, another classic trap.
And what about religion? This one was really interesting.
It was fascinating. The data shows that religious participation has a very favorable impact on positive affect, meaning more joy, more feelings of community, and it significantly reduces stress.
That makes sense. The community aspect, the rituals, a sense of purpose, it's a buffer against the small irritations of life.
A powerful one. But surprisingly, it provided no reduction in feelings of depression or worry.
Really, that's the part I would have predicted it would help with the most. It's in God's hands. That sort of thing seems aimed directly at worry.
The data didn't show it. It seems that religion is great at boosting the highs and lowering the daily irritation, but the deep-seated sadness or anxiety, what we might call clinical depression or an anxiety disorder, seems to be immune to its effects in this study.
It suggests that those conditions are a physiological or temperamental baseline that isn't easily shifted by belief or community alone.
That's a really important distinction. It validates that serious mental health issues aren't just a lack of faith or a lack of community. They are deeper, more biological realities.
Okay, let's unpack all of this. We have covered a lot of ground. We've destroyed the global question. We've exposed the remembering self as an unreliable narrator. And we found out that money buys satisfaction, but not necessarily joy.
A pretty productive hour, I'd say.
So what does this all mean? If we take this stack of research seriously, how should it change how we run our society? Let's start with the big picture, the policy perspective.
From a policy perspective, the researchers argue that the goal of society shouldn't just be to increase GDP. GDP measures economic output, which correlates very well with the remembering self's life evaluation.
We are a rich country. It's a good story to tell.
It is, but a rich country can be full of people who are miserable day to day. We should be aiming to reduce the U index. The goal of a good society should be to reduce suffering, to focus on the people who are in that 20% suffering bracket we talked about.
So a national well-being index should be as important as the stock market index.
It should be on the news every night.
Yeah.
And we should be focused on the specific levers we now know affect it. We know commuting is hell.
So investing in better public transportation or creating policies that encourage remote work isn't just about economic efficiency or reducing carbon. It's about reducing human misery on a massive scale.
Right. If you build a fast train that cuts a 60-minute stressful drive into a 30-minute relaxing ride where you can read a book, you have fundamentally improved the lives of thousands of people. You have lowered the national U index.
And childcare. If the U.S. could adopt a model that's closer to the French one, we could turn childcare from a major stressor into a source of joy.
We could relieve the chauffeur burden, as the source material calls it.
And what about socializing for the elderly? If loneliness is a major driver of a bad day, then community centers, parks, social programs, they aren't luxuries. They are essential public health interventions.
Precisely. The researchers argue that even reducing the U index by 1% amounts to millions of hours of avoided suffering. That is a noble and tangible goal for any government.
But what about us, the listeners? I can't build a light rail system tomorrow, but I can control my own schedule, at least to some extent.
And that's the most empowering takeaway from this. While we can't easily change our temperament, some of us are just naturally grumpier or more anxious, we can all control our use of time.
Time is the ultimate currency of the experiencing self.
It is, and the data gives us a clear roadmap. We need to shift time from passive leisure to active leisure.
Okay, define the difference.
Passive leisure is zoning out, mindlessly watching TV, doom scrolling on your phone. The data shows it's a low-suffering activity, which is why we do it. It's an escape. But it's not high joy. It's neutral. It's filler.
It's the junk food of time. It fills you up but doesn't nourish you.
Perfect analogy. Active leisure is socializing with people you like, engaging in exercise, or working on a hobby that creates that state of flow. Those are the things that actually boost the happiness signal in your day.
And arrange your life to reduce that long commute. I know so many people who move further and further out to get a bigger house, which feeds the remembering self. But then they suffer a 90-minute commute each way every single day, torturing the experiencing self.
That is the classic trap. You buy the house for the story of your life, look at my big house in the suburbs, but you ruin the experience of your life because you're never in it, and when you are, you're exhausted and angry from the drive.
Don't do it, folks. The research is clear. Buy the smaller house closer to work. Your experiencing self will thank you every single day.
And finally, that satiation insight, it's a reality check. If you are a person lucky enough to be earning a comfortable salary, and you're chasing a promotion that takes you from that comfortable salary to a huge salary, but it requires you to work weekends and stop seeing your friends.
You are buying satisfaction at the direct cost of happiness.
You are padding the resume but emptying the day.
That is so heavy. But it's also incredibly liberating. It gives us permission to prioritize a Tuesday evening with friends over a slightly more impressive job title.
It does. It validates that the small stuff, a good meal with people you love, a walk in the park, a great conversation, is actually the big stuff. It's the whole game.
So to wrap this all up, we have two selves, the remembering self and the experiencing self.
One tells the story, the other lives the life.
Life satisfaction is a judgment. It's a story we tell. Happiness is an experience. It's the quality of our time. And we absolutely cannot confuse the two.
The key is to not let your remembering self bully your experiencing self into a miserable existence just for the sake of a better story.
I have a final thought for you to chew on based on everything we've talked about. We know that high income improves our life satisfaction, the story, but not our daily happiness. And we know that we often make choices, like that longer commute for a higher salary, that satisfy the remembering self but torture the experiencing self.
Right. The data is very clear on that trade-off.
So here's the question. Are we, as a culture, systematically designing lives that look good on paper, lives that make for a great resume or a great obituary, but feel terrible to actually live? And if so, who are we trying to impress?
That's the question.
Pay attention to your experiencing self today. See what she or he actually likes. You might be surprised. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.